The factor 15 on, David?
That is quite an appalling prospect, the thought of me in shorts and sandals. Gordon, I'm going to start off with an apology, not for my general incompetence. We can take that as read. It's a bit noisy here at Westminster. We've got a protest by London taxi drivers. You wait ages for a taxi to come and then 500 turn up at once. We've also got a police helicopter, so we will try and battle through that. But if it is a bit noisy, apologies in advance. Let me introduce my panel this afternoon. Nicola Stephen for the Liberal Democrats, Ian Murray for Labour, Marion Fellows for the SNP, and Alberto Costa for the Conservatives. We're going to deal with one subject today, the fiscal framework. It is very technical, but it is very important to Scotland's future. Alberto, the UK government, according to the SNP, is trying to pull a fast one on the Scottish government.
No, it's the complete reverse. I mean, here we have the UK Parliament has transferred enormous powers to the Scottish Parliament. All that's outstanding is this fiscal framework. There's goodwill among the parties here in Westminster, with the exception of the SNP, and I understand actually that John Sweeney's made some headway to agreeing this. What I don't understand is why Nicola Sturgeon isn't agreeing to the very reasonable deal on the table. It's fair for the people of Scotland, and most importantly, it's fair for the people of the whole of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
So, Marion, it's the SNP, it's the Scottish government's fault, it's not the UK government's fault.
No, it's not the Scottish government's fault. I think Alberto is on a flyer of his own here. The First Minister wrote to the Prime Minister actually saying that we are very anxious to get the fiscal agreement in place, but that, as they said in the Smith Commission, should be no detriment either to Scotland or to the rest of the UK, and that's the important sticking point.
Ian Murray, I presume you're going to say something like a plague on both their houses. If they were playing nicely, they could have got this sorted already.
Well, of course it has. We had an international climate change agreement in December that was put together in less time. The Smith agreement itself was put together by the 5 political parties in less time, and the G20 came together and put a $1.1 trillion deal together in less time. I think both parties need to stop playing games here, stay at the negotiating table till the job's done. Nobody will thank them for walking away, and come to some arrangement about how this can go forward, even on a temporary basis, to get these powers through, and they can come back and look at it again at some point in the future. But the important thing here is a deal needs to be done. These are significant powers that turns the Scottish Parliament into one of the most powerful, devolved parliaments in the world, and to walk away from any of those negotiations will be doing a disservice to the Scottish people. And what we've seen in the Scottish questions today, and indeed at Prime Minister's questions, was there's a willingness, I think, on both sides. I think there is good faith on both sides, but they need to stay at the negotiating table till this is done. Everyone has said, Muscatelli has said this, Jim Gallagher has said this, that a deal isn't impossible. It's a very straightforward exercise. We just need the political will for it to happen.
Nicola Stephen, you have been in government, you've been party to negotiations similar to this in the past. Can you understand why it is taking so long?
I can understand the challenge. It's a big devolution of more power to the Scottish Parliament. It gets us to the point where we will pretty much have a federal structure in Scotland, and I think that brings with it the possibility that we need to find a different way of resolving these squabbles, these disagreements, because I think they might just about stumble to an agreement. I think the SNP surely have got to accept these new powers. They are so substantial, and to turn their backs on that would be a disaster for them. And I think, frankly, the UK government, the Conservatives, want shot of this issue. They don't want it hanging over a future Parliament. They don't want it hanging over the EU referendum. So there's a lot of good sense in reaching an agreement, but there will be squabbles in the future. And if you do have a federal structure like Australia, like Canada, you have some sort of body that will resolve these disputes, because a party of the right-wing Conservatives in London, and then the SNP in Edinburgh, they're always going to fall out over issues, and we need a sensible and mature way of resolving these squabbles.
Alberto, from an English point of view, I know you're a Scot, but you represent an English seat. Are you finding there is some resistance from your English colleagues who are actually, to put it crudely, saying to the Chancellor, don't give them too much?
No, not at all, David. I represent a British constituency in the British Parliament. Let me be clear about that. What there is a tremendous amount of goodwill, not from a right-wing party, as Nicholas explained. We're a centrist, balanced, Conservative government. And let's not forget, even though we've got two loud Chinooks flying over us, let's not forget, if it weren't for the Conservative Party, there would not have been the Scotland Bill that we've presented to the Parliament and that we got through from the Parliament. And these have, as Ian said, we're giving extensive powers to the Scottish Parliament. And the fact is, we are at the negotiating table. It's the Scottish Government, and it's Nicola Sturgeon in particular, that for some reason doesn't want to take up these opportunities
Marion
now.
Fellows, I think we could take it that that wasn't Nicola Sturgeon arriving to conclude
no,
the
but
talks there in her helicopter. But does the Scottish Government really want a deal, or are you willing to walk away from it and just say, look, we tried to get a deal for Scotland, it wasn't good enough, we're in the middle of an election campaign, tough?
I think Alberto's got entirely the wrong idea. I don't think he's even read the letter that the First Minister wrote to the Prime Minister, where she, obviously didn't understand it, because Nicola Sturgeon was quite explicitly clear that she wants more powers for the Scottish Parliament, and she wants to stand by what the Smith Commission promised, which is no detriment to either the UK or Scotland. And we need per capita indexation for that.
OK, Ian Murray, with hindsight, was the Smith Commission pulling a bit of a fast one, putting in this definition of no detriment, which seemed quite innocuous at the time, and then you look at it and you think, actually, this is pretty difficult.
Not really, because Lord Smith himself has said this is easy enough to resolve with the political will to do so. Everyone misquotes what Smith says. It's 95.3 and 4 of the Smith Agreement. It says there'll be no detriment to either party at the initial transfer of powers, and no detriment to either party with the decisions that each party makes. That's not difficult. That's been misquoted on a number of occasions. In fact, it's slightly misquoted in Nicola Sturgeon's letter to the Prime Minister yesterday. But now she's asking for 3 things. She wants transparency, she's laid out her principles that she wants to negotiate on, and she's extending the time frame for those negotiations to be concluded. I've been asking for that for 6 months, so I welcome the letter, but let's get this deal done.
Nicola Stephen, final word to you as someone who's sort of been in government. Do you think they will get a deal?
I think on balance they probably will, but I agree with Ian that transparency would have helped a great deal. If we knew what was happening behind these closed doors, then we would, each of us, we would have been able to come to a much fairer judgment on exactly what is happening. And I think it would have been more likely that the parties would have been forced towards an agreement. Behind closed doors is not a good way to do government. It should be much more open, and I hope we can achieve that in the future.
Nicola Stephen, Ian Murray, Marion Fellows and Alberto Costa, thank you very much.